Hi everyone, welcome to another Lead Square webinar. I am your host as always, I am Shivani Roy, and we've been doing webinars at Lead Square for a very long time now, about at least 5-6 years. Like every month, we bring a new topic, new speakers, and we also cater them to specific industries. So this time we will be talking to folks from the EdTech sector, what's happening in the EdTech sector, what are we expecting from this year. We would also dive into the impact that we've had given everything that happened last year. So we will talk about all that and much more. So we are discussing the EdTech sales strategy for 2021 with Vedantu as our special guest. I have two speakers with me today, both very experienced. And I am also actually really looking forward to what they have to say about the EdTech sector. So I have Ankit Chaudhary from Vedantu. He is the head of sales strategy and planning there. And I have Murli Krishna, who is the vice president of sales at Lead Square. So Ankit, without further ado, if you could please tell us a little bit about yourself. How has the year been for you? And also a little bit about Vedantu.
Sure, Shivan. Thanks for introducing us. Right. Hi guys. I'm Ankit. Right. I have been with Vedantu for 2 years now. Right. In and out looking for sales. Right. Trying to scale up the team. Right. From ground zero. The time when I joined Vedantu 2 years back, we just landed a Series B funding. Right. So from there we had taken this massive effort to scale up our sales team. We just had a less than 100 odd team size of inside sales, right? There we started our field sales unit, right? There to now, I think we've grown considerably, right, in the last 2 years in our sales setup in Vedanta, right? And I've been instrumental in driving this scale up and growth for Vedanta. Right? I am majorly looking at sales strategy and planning at this point in time. Right? Talking a bit about my background, done my MBA from IIM Bangalore. About 5 years of work ex under my belt now. Right? Yeah, here I am today to take you through some of the happenings in EdTech in the last year or so, right, and try and answer questions that you may have.
Thank you. I seem to have a noise, background noise at my end. Is that happening for you all as well?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it should be Murli.
Yeah.
Shivani, am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Murli, and I head sales at Lead Square. And I think from the last 7 years, we have been closely working.
Murli, we've lost you. I think. Ankit, let me know if you can hear Murli because I can't hear him
No, I
at the
think
moment.
I've also lost Murli.
Okay. So I think let's just go ahead with the session, and when Murli can join back in, we'll try to have him back. So let's just dive into the session.
Sure.
Yeah. Am I audible now, Shivani? Sorry, guys. There is a glitch.
Yes.
Yeah, Murli.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think pleasure to be on the session, and I think without wasting much time, we'll quickly start. Ankit, we can start.
Awesome. Okay.
Guys, quickly a bit about Vedantu, right? As in all my webinars, I talk about my current company, right, and where we are. So as I said, I joined Vedantu 2 years back, right, post the Series B funding, right, and most of you would know, right, we are a live online tutoring company started by our three co-founders, right, Anand, Prakash, Vamsi, Krishna, and Pulkit Jain, right? So they have all in all been teaching post their IIT, right? So they started with an offline coaching institute in Patiala that was named as Lakshya Institute. They taught there for over 6 years, right? and then they realized that if they have to probably give quality education to every nook and corner in the country, offline may not be the right way, right? And they needed to take that plunge on online, where they could reach the masses, right, at a much affordable prices, right, and give quality education, right? So then they've taken that plunge way back in 2012, right? And around 2014 is when we launched Vedantu, right? So Vedantu, basically the word comes from two words, right? Ved and Tantu. Ved is knowledge, and Tantu is network, right? So they're trying to create a network of knowledge around the world, right? Yeah, so our vision is to try and provide quality education to every household in the country, or every kid in the country, right? And give them the best of the services, right? Ensure that they have certain takeaways, right? Once they are enrolled with us. So this thing that we classically that's being told quite often here internally, and we promise also to our end user, which is our students, that we will ensure a great learning experience, right, for all the onboarded students, and the learning outcome of these students will be our responsibility, right? And yeah, we have demonstrated good results for so many years now, right? Be it whether we were teaching in Laksh, or whether we have been teaching in Vedantu, right? We have always ensured that we are there in the top league, right, when it comes to those ranks, be it in board exams or NTSE or KVPY or JEE or NEET for that matter, right? That's a bit about Vedantu, right? And so moving on, Shivani, if you can jump to the next slide. Right. So as was the topic of this webinar, that we'll try and talk about how COVID impacted the industry. Right. There were a lot of players, right? Small ones primarily before COVID struck it, right? Byju's was the industry leader in the tech space, right? And yeah, there were a lot of other players, small players. They were trying to do well for themselves, right? But COVID typically had a lot of tailwinds, right, for this industry in general, right, compared to other industries, right? So I've taught, I'll briefly touch about these 5 aspects that are there in the slide on how they evolved pre and post COVID, right? So pre-COVID, as we know, all these tech players, right, they were trying to create a mark for themselves, trying to reach to every nook and corner in the country. But a major hiccup that they were facing is that it was becoming very difficult to convince parents, right, on the importance of studying online compared to studying offline, right? So primary mode of learning post pre-COVID was offline learning, right, where students were either getting engaged in those home tuitions or offline coaching institutes, right, or nearby tuition centers, right? But post-COVID, they were forced by nature, right, to stop going to those institutes, right? And then they were trying to study on their own, right? And right, the entire edtech industry, they are trying to reach out to these people, right, in some way or the other, and trying to help them get onboarded online for an online education, right? And yeah, so then the shift, right, the shift of people towards online education saw a tremendous shift in online traffic, right? So the traffic on our web or app, right, increased multifold, right? And the same happened with all other players, right? The funding in 2019, right, was just limited to about a 400 million, right, dollars, right? Whereas post COVID, right, the entire year saw uh, more than a fourfold increase in funding, right? While the number of companies that received funding are almost similar, but yeah, the amount of money or liquidity in the market increased significantly there, right? Competition was not very immense, right? Vedantu typically competes with all those offline institutes and not the online ones, right? Because the online ones at that point in time did not talk about learning outcome or results, right? They're not talking about result guarantee, right? We were the only player in the online space where we're talking about results, right? So we when we moved from an offline to an online player, right, we were trying to take merge the best of the worlds, right, from online and offline, and present to our end user or our students, right? So the competition did increase post COVID. A lot of players who did not have the right infra suddenly got those online access to the online tools to reach to the end user became very easy, right? And we saw a lot of players, right, harping on this opportunity and trying to get into this space of online education, right? So that's how the competition is increased, right? There's a lot that you will see have been happening in the last 3-4 months, right, in the online edtech space also, right? In terms of the consolidation that has started, right, at some point. We'll try and talk more about that in the subsequent slide. Uh, so yeah, before COVID, as I said, the focus is more to convince parents and students to learn online, right? We get a lot of our sales pitches typically stressed on the importance of learning online, right? We had to spend a good amount of time trying to convince customer that online is better compared to studying offline, right? Now, once the nature has given us that opportunity where probably a lot of these sales pitches have shifted from probably convincing parents on why should they study online to what is the importance of online education and how will it help, right? We are trying to focus more on those student engagement parameters, trying to make our courses more interactive or teaching more interactive, ensuring that every kid who's present in our classes understand every bit of details that you're supposed to understand, let's say in a school, right, or that you're supposed to know outside school as well, right? So that's how COVID has been, right, for the industry, right? So I think moving on, Shivan, if you can jump to the next slide. Yeah. So there have been a couple of these impacts, right, for COVID on the sales team, right? The major impact was that most of the like us, most of the players were predominantly catering to these sales processes by going to the customer's home, right? So it was more of a home demo based sales that used to happen, right? The inside sales model was not very scalable, right? Because it was becoming very tough beyond a point to convince customers to study online, right? In a home demo scenario, when you're sitting in front of the customers, it becomes very easy to convince the customer, right, on the benefits of online education, right? So the sales methodology get impacted, right? We could not send our sales team to customers home, right, for obvious reasons post COVID. And if we had to do all of that virtually, we were faced with these issues of network, right, where internet and bandwidth was becoming a challenge given the internet penetration that country has, right? So and then the lack of tools, right? So a lot of companies did struggle immediately after COVID struck, right? Where they didn't have the required infra to reach out to end customer, right? Beyond what they could do through, let's say, those YouTube sessions or webinars, right? Or master classes, right? But so that was another challenge, right? Plus competition did increase multifold, right, post COVID, because once people started figuring out answers to these problems, right, a lot of players, a lot of small time institutes also started coming online, right, and they're trying to push the boundaries, and yeah, the industry was becoming more and more noisy, is how I'd like to put that as, right? And yeah, scaling up was another challenge, right? Because pre-COVID, most of these players had a playbook, right, where they knew that the right kind of selling is home demo based selling model, right? And then suddenly COVID just shattered everyone's plan, right? So then scaling up to a new model was becoming a challenge for these people, right? For the new ones as well as the old ones, right? So moving on, Yeah. So just in this slide, I'll just say probably on how a lot of these players, right, the big and the small ones, try to solve these problems for themselves, right? So there were a lot of players who shifted to a complete inside sales model, right? In fact, all of them shifted to a complete inside sales model, right? So there are two parts to it. First being that the inside sales model was predominantly calling, right? No face-to-face interaction, right? And then we did something different there, which is what I'll cover later, right? Then there were other companies who were very much there were other companies who wanted to have these face-to-face interaction, because that's how their sales team were designed, right? Or that's how they were trained, that those conversations over a face-to-face interactions are easier, right? It becomes easier to convince the customers, right? So a lot of these companies, they try to get some of the other online interaction tools, or they partnered with Zoom, right, and conducted those virtual home demos, right, sitting from the comfort of their homes, right? And then there were these other players who found it suddenly difficult to convince the customers, right, doing either of these two, either the inside sales model, or even if Zoom was not helping, right, they try to reduce their ticket sizes significantly, right, so as to ensure that they get as many customers as possible, right, and then try and get more and more out of those customers over a period of time. But yeah, so they reduce their ticket sizes significantly, so as to maintain their presence in the industry, right? What we did differently is that we shifted to this inside sales model, where a lot of sales used to happen virtually only, right? But the entire field sales unit, we gave our own proprietary platform, which we used to teach to our students, right? Which is called WAVE, Whiteboard Audio Video Environment, is the expanded form of the acronym, right? So our sales team, we customize our platform, since we had a strong tech at our disposal, right? A strong tech team at our disposal. We in just a couple of days we could customize our platform for our sales team to use, and continue giving those home demo experience, show our strength, right, to those students on what does the platform have, right, for all of them, how they can study with us online, how would the experiences be, and how would the interactions be with their peer group, or with the master teacher who's teaching in classes, right? So I'll not say that any of these players had a major hit, right? So one of the players who probably reduced the ticket sizes significantly, right? So their overall revenue for that month decreased significantly, but they were able to acquire a higher number of users with this strategy, right? There were a lot of players who had those hits in their revenues also immediately after COVID struck, because they were not ready with the infra, right? But if you look at Vedantu, I think we continued growing, right? Pre-COVID or post-COVID, COVID didn't impact us negatively, right? It did help us positively, right? Because our sales team didn't have to take enough pain on convincing people on why it is important to study online, right? COVID helped us there, right? And then yeah, the entire planning and strategy that we had at our disposal on how we should sell to the end consumer helped us scale in the post-COVID era also, right? Yeah, so now I think over a period of time, right now it's almost been a year since COVID struck, right? And I think people have now figured out on what is their next set of growth strategy, right? Where will the next set of growth come in, and how should they plan their growth journey, right? Moving on, I'll touch on how our players looking at scaling the sales team, right? So yeah, there are multiple interventions that they need to do, right? Try to touch broadly classify them across these six buckets, right? The first and most important being among these buckets is that the players need to figure out what's the right sales process, and can that be repeated over a period of time, right? If that does not happen, things will break, right? Giving our example, right? We had these we shifted to demos on Wave, right? Because that was a scalable solution at our disposal, right? And it didn't impact us. We had an increase in our sales team size post COVID also, and we didn't face any hiccup whatsoever, right? But again, giving another example there, right? So there were a couple of companies whose lead acquisition strategy was predominantly based on these offline models, where they were trying to reach out to schools and acquire those lead sets from there, and then call them up and then get them enrolled onto their platform, right? But then post COVID, since all these schools stopped functioning, right, for a period of time, some of these players have had those long lasting impacts, right, where they've not been able to scale up, right? And yeah, the other piece is that, right, with a company like us, right, or a company of this size, you will need a lot of data, and you will need to look at a lot of data, crunch data, and understand what's going right and what's going wrong, right? And then plan or replan your strategies accordingly, right? So you keep looking at how your sales funnel is behaving, what are the corrections that you need to do, keep making those corrections on the go, and start and accordingly scale, right? At that point in time, to ensure that visibility, right, for themselves, because everyone was sitting at their homes, right, trying to do their work, trying to reach out to as many customers as possible and get them enrolled, right? There were these options around payment policies, right, that had to change a lot. A lot of those edtech sales, or a lot of those edtech players, sold ticket sizes where they didn't collect the entire money upfront, right, and they were collecting a part of those money upfront, right? So there's a small example where in certain cases the card limit of people didn't help them purchase those big courses, right? Then there were people who had to introduce EMI schemes, their internal EMI schemes, to ensure that they didn't lose on those customer base, right, and keep getting more and more customers, right? A lot of edtech players were selling through these fintech partners, help giving loan to their end consumers, right? So there was a lot of changes around the infra there. The fintech partners also took some time to adjust in this new way of working, right? And then finally, once they got through, they were able to then scale together with these edtech players, right? Another piece was that, yeah, you needed to ensure that with a remote way of working, you had to find the right talent, be in sales or in other functions of the company, right, where the right resources or right hiring would have helped you scale well, right? So then for a lot of players, right, when pre-COVID, we were probably half, even less than half the team size that we are now, right? So we had to change a lot of our hiring strategy, right, to ensure that we get the right talent on boarded, right? The way we were hiring earlier to the way we are hiring now has a significant change, right? And right, we have been able to get the right talent also, right? With this new hiring strategy, we've been able to get the right talent at the right time, right? The timing also matters a lot here, uh, right? And yeah, I think we have been fortunate enough there to get that right talent for scaling our team, right? Training becomes a very important lever, right? Because to transition this team into new way of selling, or to keep pivoting, right, during this entire journey in the last 1 year, right, we took as Vedantu, right, we took we made multiple changes, right? And it was very important to ensure that this larger sales team that we have at our disposal was trained well, right? The transitions happened really well, and yeah, people got accustomed to new way of selling, right, without affecting their productivity or output that they were delivering pre-COVID, right? Setting up tools, right, for this work from home model is very important, right? We needed to have the right CRM, right? We needed to have the right set of usage or strategies around CRM tools, right, which is LeadSquare in this case. we didn't run with dialer solutions earlier pre-COVID, right? So immediately when COVID struck, we were well in time to ensure that we had those dialer solutions in place so that we could listen into those calls, right? Understand what's happening, look at the quality, train our teams well, right? I've already spoken about Wave, Zoom, Google Meet, right? All of these platforms being used by the sales team to interact with their end consumers, right? And yeah, the last being the last piece being that ensuring that your incentive strategy, right, did change with the change in external environment, right? So typically when we were doing home demos, right, the number of home demos used to be probably 1/3 of what we are doing now, right? And the conversions used to be much higher, right? Because you're sitting at home. To now to ensure that we are virtually working with those right set of enrollments that we target, right? We needed to change our incentive strategy in such a way that it helped us uh, navigate through a sales funnel the way we wanted, right? We needed to increase our customer interactions more and more post COVID, right? Because it was becoming difficult also to connect to those customers because of those internet bandwidth issues that I spoke about in the earlier slide, right? So setting up your incentive structure that helps you navigate through the sales funnel well, the way you would have planned, is also very important for a company that runs on a lot of assisted sales channel model, right? So yeah,
So
moving on.
Ankit, quick question. Yeah. So, Vedantu as a business deals with a lot of K-12 segment, right?
Hmm.
So, is there a I mean, K-12 is usually known for its cyclical demand in terms of purchasing tools like Vedantu, or or maybe taking services of Vedantu. So, do you see that as a trend? Is the business for Vedantu anywhere in seasonal in nature, or it usually happens across the year?
I'll not deny that the business is not seasonal, right? Especially in K-12 where you are giving a lot of curriculum courses, right? But it is very important to know what is the right strategy there. What do you have to sell at what time of the year to ensure that your sales continually pick up and not decrease, right? So ensuring that you have the right set of product offerings at the right time of the year, right? So typically if you say the first half of the year until let's say July, you will be able to sell a year-long courses, right? That's how what we have been doing, right? Post July, you will need to ensure
Okay.
that you have those half-year courses, right, to cater to people's need, where they can study for half year, and selling a 1 year-long course may not really make sense, right? You need to work a lot around your pricing strategy there on what should be the pricing of the course at what time of the year, right? So I think all of these
Okay.
measures, right, if used well, they should help you sail through the seasonality curve that the segment presents, the K-12 segment presents.
Okay. And I mean, in these seasons, do you see drop in inbound inquiries as such, or that usually continues?
A lot of these inbound inquiries, right, they are generated, right, through some of the marketing activities that you plan throughout the year, right? So that's the
Okay.
third element, right? So if you're planning if your marketing strategy is right, if you're planning the right kind of marketing campaigns at the right time of the year, I think those inbound queries do not decrease at any point in time, if you ask me, right? I have not seen that in the last 2.5 years here in Vedantu, definitely.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect.
Sure.
So we can take any questions from the audience in case quickly for 2-3 minutes before
Yeah,
we move on to the next slides.
yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there was a question that came in really early on, even before the session started, from Mr. Som Shekaran. He says, "What is the best sales strategy for online education for kids from age group of 4 to 12?"
Okay, Ankit is the best person. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for kids in the age group of 4 to 12, right? So typically, we started attacking that TG post COVID came in, right? We had opened our platform to cater to any student between kindergarten to 12, right? So there, if you see how things have evolved over the last 1 year, right? So there were these players, a lot of small players who were trying, we're just struggling to enter into that segment. The CAM K12, White Hat Junior, they're trying to get into coding space, right? But I think we started with our curriculum courses there, right? But again, that did not pick up at that point in time, right? So we followed the regular way where we also introduced coding, right? We had a lot of new courses that we kept introducing over a period of time, right? So broadly, between then and now, for this segment of 4 to 12th, I think giving a lot of new courses or a lot of these extracurricular courses that typically these schools do not cater to would ensure that you are able to acquire a lot of those customers there, right? So more than probably sales, right? The way of selling will not change significantly, right? But the kind of products matter a lot in this age group of 4 to 12th, right? So there's a lot of there's a lot that's happening in that space of, let's say, a K to 5, right, kindergarten to 5th grade, right, where people are talking about coding skills, people are talking about reading, people are talking about maths, right, and multiple other things, right? There are these robotics courses that are now also available. There are multiple such things that's happening, right? And this space is very interesting, right? Compared to, let's say, 6 to 12th, right, where typically you are selling those curriculum courses and trying to cater to the needs of those test prep students as well.
Okay. If we are taking more questions, then I'll move on to Ms. Sulagna's question now. She says, what are the measures being taken by Vedantu to keep learners engaged? What is the one thing that you can tell parents is the USP for Vedantu?
So we have been doing multiple things, right, on the engagement front, right, where we measure our session on the NPS scores that keep coming in from our end user, right, and we do a lot there, right, where we are trying to ensure a lot of participation in class, right. We're ensuring that people are aware of the classes, they know, they keep coming to classes, they get engaged, right? We are uh, if you would have seen, we have made a lot of changes on our Wave platform over a period of time, where we have been creating those hotspots, quizzes, right? The one probably that you're presenting here, right? We are doing helping a lot with those homeworks also, right? Because typically in schools people get homework, right, but they used to get some help from those school teachers themselves, right? But post COVID, that also presented a challenge, right? So we're doing a lot around homework help, right? We are conducting extra classes also in Vedantu beyond those regular scheduled classes for people to learn, right, and grow, right. And yeah, so the other part of the question, right, was on what's one thing, right, that we have been speaking, right, that has been a constant with Vedantu is what I would say, right, over the so many years. We have normally been talking about these two elements, where we say that we will ensure that the best learning experience is given to the student, right? And we will take ownership of the learning outcome, right? Which can be measured from the results that he is getting, right? So this is our promise to every onboarded students on our platform, right? That we will take ownership and accountability of the results that they're looking at for themselves.
Sure. Maybe one more question before we continue, and I see there are a lot of questions coming in. Karthikeyan, this is your question. What challenges, I would say, what challenges did you see in scaling home demo channel pre-COVID? Ankit, I think this is direct.
Yeah. So the challenge we're more coming from getting those people, right, the right set of people, right. The industry has been so that we to get the right talent at probably the right set of salary bands that you would look at, right, was one challenge that we were trying to navigate through. Reaching to more and more customers, right, getting a lot of those prospective clients come to our platform was another challenge, right. Beyond that, I think we were majorly sorted, right, or most of the players would have been sorted because the service side is typically in-house, right, with all of these, and that's something that does not present a lot of challenge, right. But yeah, the home demos did uh, present their challenges where we had to get those right kind of people at the right salaries, right, get the right set of prospective clients, and then the entire logistics and operations around those home demos was one big thing that we had to cater to, where there was a lot of issues with respect to travel, right, or travel people. So if I have a team based out of Bangalore, and if I'm getting, let's say, leads from Mysore, right, and not enough leads from Bangalore, then I'd aware those challenges where I could not cater to those kids in person, right. So a lot of players then back then were trying to work on this uh, model where, right, they used to do calling and book appointments, right, for weekends, right, and cater to those students on the home demo model over the weekends, right. So if I am in Bangalore, right, I will probably book a lot of appointments for people from Mysore, right, over the weekend, and then probably send a couple of our sales team members to Mysore over the weekend, where they'll go and conduct these home demos and then close the sales there.
All right. I think we can go back to the presentation now before we take
Sure.
any others.
Yeah. So this slide majorly talks about the element that I touched it briefly, right, where we said there were a couple of players who reduced their ticket sizes, right. So that was one strategy that they adopted, where they ensured that the volume of enrolled customer does not decrease, right? While they were ready or okay to take a slight hit, momentary hit in their revenues at that time of the year, right? So they were from, let's say, a ticket size of about 40,000, right? They were reduced to a ticket size of about 8 to 10,000, right? But again, they harped a lot on these upsells and cross sells, where they ensured that for all the customers that came at a lower ticket sizes, right? From selling, let's say, year-long courses, they reduced to selling to a 1 month or a 3 month long courses, right? And then all of these customers were upsold, right, for year-long courses post their month or 3 monthly courses expired, right? And then there are a lot of other courses that they kept providing to the customers, right, in form of cross sells that did not fit in the same category, right. So with the curriculum course, they started giving textbook courses also, right. So that is how a lot of players harp, right, and that continues to be one of the best strategies, where you try and ensure that you get the maximum LTV, right, from a customer that you have onboarded in the form of upsells and cross sells, right. So if, let's say, if I am on enrolling a student in a grade 6th at this time of the year, I'll probably give him a 6th, 7th course, right, a 1 year long 7th course, right. And once he has seen some classes, right, I'll try and uh, talk about, let's say, our coding courses. I'll try and talk about some of the Olympiad courses, right, which the customer could be interested in, right. So it is very important to see how much, right, can be extracted from the customer, right, in form of upsells and cross sells, right. So there's this huge opportunity that comes with every enrolled customer, right, that the companies have been looking at generating. So the LTV CAC fits really well there, right? And yeah, that's another channel of growth, right? Which a lot of players are now looking at driving through, right? Introducing the right set of courses, right, with the right pricing, and ensuring that they're able to cater to all the demands that's presented to them, right? Yeah. So yeah, so that's
Uh,
another part to keep on there.
Ankit, as we're talking about growth, Ankit, so Vedantu as a business have any plans to go outside India, or is it already doing?
So I am not I cannot divulge a lot of details, but yeah, I think
Okay.
still there's heavy focus on domestic market, right? Because there's a lot to be done here in the country itself, right? We are still not
Okay.
there where we would have expected ourselves or where we want ourselves to be, right? So there's some bit of journey that we need to trail there before probably we start scaling outside the country. But yeah, we
Okay.
have been doing some business from outside the country, right? But not
Okay.
heavy focus goes there, right? Most of our focus is on domestic market currently.
I'm glad you
Okay.
asked that,
Perfect.
Murli, because even the audience wanted to know about Vedantu going international. So I see there are two
I know.
questions here on the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know the
But glad.
curiosity of the audience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we don't say no there, right? It's just that there's
Yeah.
not a lot of effort that's going there, right? But yeah, there are plans,
Yeah.
there are certain plans that we are working on. But yeah, domestic is our first focus,
So,
right? Yeah.
and I have one more generic question. I mean, again, audience will be more curious to know, obviously. So, the industry of edtech as a business, right? One question, how much potential do you think India still have, or I mean, is it at a point of saturation? Yes or no? And uh, I mean, EdTech is being consolidated. We see acquisitions happening. I mean, especially Byju's, Unacademy, and obviously Vedantu also in some cases. So I mean, what is the market overall, or the trend which you see? Like, is it like consolidation where 3-4 players will remain in the market, or there is still market for new entrants or new EdTech startups who are, I mean, who can come into the market and still have a share?
So I think there's a lot that's left to be extracted, right? A lot of the players in the industry, right, the online ones specifically, have this challenge at their disposal where giving their courses at an affordable price is still a challenge, right? So there's a huge market, right, that you can read from so many reports that's circulated online, right? But the market has been hot, right? There has been a lot of consolidation, right? The industry leader is driving a lot of these consolidation. But again, if you see in parallel, there are a lot of these new players still coming up, right? I think that there's a lot that's left in the industry to be explored, right? The K5 segment is fairly new. There's not much of work that has happened, right? And there's a lot that's happening there and has started to happen. In a nutshell, I understand that this consolidation is happening. It's not going to stop. It'll happen further. But again, there's a lot for these new players also for them to offer, right? A lot of these major players
Okay.
have been selling those typical courses that everyone is selling, right? So there are a lot of these new ones or interesting courses that are coming in. The way of teaching and everything is also getting changed over a period of time also. People have to keep pivoting, right, in terms of ensuring that they have those right courses or the right kind of teaching or learning is imparted to the end customer, right? I think there's a lot of work that needs to happen. But yeah, all in all, I think there's a lot that's left in the industry, right? Not it has definitely
Okay.
not reached a saturation, right? It has moved a lot
Perfect.
of speed.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a lot to be done.
Okay, Ankit. Yeah, perfect. So I think quickly we can complete the slides, Ankit. So because of the time constraint, we may take questions from the audience quickly. That will help all the
Sure.
audience as well to get more insights. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm mostly done, right? There's this last bit, right? I think so I've touched in pieces already, right? So there's a lot happening on automation, right? Where we are trying to be more and more cost efficient, right? A lot of these startups, they're looking at being CM positive, right, over a period of time now. So there's a lot that needs to go on. A lot of effort needs to go on with automation, right? Where they need to use bots to curtail or shorten the sales cycle, right? Or use bots for the kind of templatized work in certain cases, which the sales team or the post sales team would be doing, right? There's a lot that's happening, right? You took an academy's name, right? A lot of their sales are self-serve, right? So this is one area that needs to that will scale up further, right? There are a lot of these conversational engines that are being built, right, where the bots are helping or assisting in sales, right? And yeah, there's a lot that's happening with ML and AI, right, in this space, which will help or drive or fuel the next set of growth for the industry. Yeah, I think I am mostly done, Shivani. Yeah,
Perfect.
unless there are questions.
Thanks a lot, Ankit. Yeah. So yeah, we will take questions. So I'll take 5 more minutes to just explain a couple of slides on the journey of Lead Squared with Vedantu. Yeah, so Shibani, next slide, please. So I think Vedantu as a customer is being with us from last 5+ years now. And obviously the journey is fantastic. And I mean, from the audience, we have a lot of our customers, some prospects, and a lot of people who are who are looking at Lead Squared for the first time. So a couple of things or a couple of pointers on Lead Squared on how we drive overall efficiency across edtech and focusing on call center or field sales operations. So 5-6 important points or features where we derive value from or we provide value to the customer. So one, being velocity business of edtech, we basically have very robust lead distribution engine, which basically helps customers to distribute leads on various complex logics, which will be based on availability of the agent or performance of the agent or various other logics based on lead capping, etc. So lead distribution is one of the key factors or key features being used by the tech industry. And other important factor which Ankit already touched based is lead qualification. So as the volume of leads are high and prioritizing the leads on which lead to be contacted first, which lead to be assigned to what kind of an agent, that makes a whole set of process where you need to automate this criteria to get better value from the leads which you're generating, right? That's the second piece of it. Third is obviously having a large number of teams, which means large operations going on, and you cannot really monitor each individual and check their performance, etc. So we have a proactive notification engine basically which helps to nudge the salesperson or notify them on their tasks, pending follow-ups, or the work that needs to be done on a regular basis. So that will help him to proactively complete his tasks and do the next step of sale. And smart views and sales funnel sales tracking, I'll not go in detail. So smart views are basically a core feature of Lead Squared, which helps to regiment the salesperson's daily activity so basically being a platform being used by thousands of people in the call center, the most important factor is the users need to like the system, and users need to enjoy working on the system and adapt to the tool quickly. So that's where our smart views and sales tracking methodology comes into picture, which basically helps the users to use the platform much effectively, and with ease of use the overall adoption increases, right? So these are a couple of pointers, and I have more slides obviously, but we will share the presentation with you because of lack of time. So I'll be happy to take questions from the audience more. A couple of more pointers. So we have features on security, masking the number, right? Automated dialing, all of that are core part of the platform, which helps to make all these call center operations much easier and automated. Yeah. And last points from my side. So Shivani, the last slide, please. Yeah. So we'll be open for question and Q&A. So I think this is the important point where we want to highlight on why. So I think a lot of people ask why automation is important in a tech process. Ankit briefly explained most of it. So first thing is EdTech as a business is a volume business, right? So the number of inquiries are large and the sales cycles are less. Competition is intense. So with all of these in place, automation is the only way where you can scale, right? I mean, one of the audience or a couple of you are already asking questions on managing scale. Now, automation is the only way or the best possible way you can say to scale your operations with having control as well as having efficiency, right? Now, automation can be on teams, right? Basically, automating processes or automating the way the teams operate. All of this, including anything which reduces time of an individual. I mean, one of you is asking how engaging you can do it. So reducing number of clicks also is a big sign of automating a certain process, right? And each step is to monitor each and every step in your journey of sale or lead generation, starting from lead generation till conversion. Each and every step ideally needs to be monitored, and if there is a way to automate it, I think that's the way or approach which the businesses, especially the tech businesses, are taking, and I definitely can see the trend happening, right? So yeah, I think with this note, we'll be happy to take questions. I think there are a lot of questions already from the audience. We'll quickly touch base and we'll be happy to answer them. Yeah.
Absolutely, Muli, and thank you so much, Ankit, as well, for those presentations and those slides. We had lots of questions, so I will get into that. Just before I start asking the questions, guys, so we are preparing this report on the edtech sector, and I'll be throwing some questions your way via the poll. Please be nice and let us know your thoughts. All you have to do is just select the option that's most relevant to you. So with that, let me just dive into the questions and keep responding to the poll. Okay. So Ankit, I think the next question is also for you. Let me just scroll up and see where did we end it last. Right. So Ankit, this was earlier when you were talking about, I think, the things you all did due to COVID. So the question from Kamna, who says, as you mentioned, the volume of offline sales were lesser, but the conversions were higher. But in terms of numbers, which sales were higher, online or offline?
Sorry, can you come again? You said the conversion. First of all, the question was conversions were higher, right, in a home demo scenario, and that has decreased slightly. And the other part of the question was?
But in terms of numbers, which sales were higher? So the whole question is, as you mentioned, the volume of offline sales were lesser, but the conversions were higher. But in terms of numbers, which sales were higher, online or offline? Kamna,
So
if you want to add to that, then do share any further points you want to add to that, Kamna. Sorry, Ankit.
yeah, so the volume of sales have been higher in online, right? We have been more cost efficient, right, when it comes to online versus offline, right? We've been doing much well in online. In fact, retention and has also been doing good, right? Because we have been able to show our entire platform, show the capabilities, right? We changed a lot around our lead acquisition strategy also, where we got a lot of free trials done before we started calling those customers to get enrolled with us, right? So in a nutshell, I think the volume has been much higher in online, right? We have been overall, the volumes have been much better in online compared to what it was in offline, right? But yeah, offline did help us with the last step of the funnel, right? Where just before closer, when we did these home demos, we had more number of sales, right? Because there these home demos were not too many, right? As I said, we've grown more than 3x, right, in terms of the demos that we were doing earlier to demos that we're doing now, and the conversions have dropped slightly. So in a nutshell, we have increased our sales volume more in an online setup than in an offline setup.
All right. I am moving on to Kartikin's question. He says, how do you compare inbound leads versus leads acquired through other channels? And then I think the next question is for you, Murli. He's asking about lead qualification and how does that happen?
Okay. So I'll take the lead qualification question first. I think that will be helpful. So Karthikeyan, so we qualify leads based on various parameters, starting with the engagement the lead is doing on the app or website. That's the starting point, wherein what pages he is visiting, how much time he is spending, what links he is clicking, whether he is taking any mock test. If yes, what is the subject, right? So all of these can act as a trigger to create a score based on the activities the lead is doing. That is one. The other parameters, which include quality criteria, we call it, which will basically help you define certain ideal customer profile, wherein you say the age is this, class is this, city is this. So if all these are there and the interest is in this particular subject, you want to rate a certain score, from 0 to 10, right? So that is another metrics which we follow. And there are other scoring or other criteria called engagement metrics, which will basically define or tell you the behavior in a certain duration, like from the initial lead generation or the day the lead got or inquiry got submitted. You want to track for the next 5 days, because that's the crucial period for you to close the deal, right? So those 5 days we monitor specific metrics, whether those are happening or not, and obviously help the salesperson give signals or give inputs to them on what actions he can take, right? So I think, yeah, so if you are keen, we can have a detailed demonstration as well, Karthikeyan, if that works. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Ankit, do you want to add anything to it? How do you compare inbound leads versus leads acquired through other channels?
Yeah, so traditionally the inbound channel has always been giving us a far better conversion compared to all other channels, right? Because there the intent is really high. Customer calls from his side inquiring for a course, right? So we have those right set of processes, right? Whenever we get those inbound calls, right, we try and reach out to that customer immediately, right? Like how it would happen anywhere else, and try and close the deals, right? The conversions have been multifold compared to all other lead acquisition strategy there, right? But yeah, so there's a point to which you can scale your inbound or influence your inbound channel with those right marketing campaigns, right? Beyond that, you will not be able to scale up, right? You have to depend on your other channels of lead acquisitions there.
All right. I am moving to the next question, and it's from Rashi. So she says, Ankit, coding for juniors is a fad with White Hat Junior receiving the flag. So I think maybe she wants to know your opinion on that.
Very,
I think
very. It's a debatable topic, by the way, Shivani.
I
Yeah,
know. I
there is a
just
huge debate already.
but but
Yeah.
I think they've pushed the boundaries slightly more than they should, right? I think the intent there is to ensure that we get a lot of our kids in the country, right? Computer education, right? Being computer literate. I think that's the main intent there. Probably the marketing strategy did not work right in their favor, right? But beyond that, if you see with Vedantu also, I think the only messaging is that we want to teach every student in the country with whatever they want to get taught, right, from the basket of offerings that we have, right? So that's where it is, not trying to push boundaries for any of these offerings in particular, right? But yeah, I think the business is there, right? There are a lot of customers who want to be computer literate, right, who want to learn coding, right, in the country, right? There are multiple parts of the countries, right, especially the smaller cities, right, where there's lot that needs to happen in terms of computer education there, right? I think our intent is to try and get to those parts of the country and help the kids there as well.
I am moving on to the next question, which I think would be interesting to you also, Murli. Maybe from your experience, you can tell us. So Nitin's question is, how skills of sales team have changed pre and post COVID?
Okay, so I mean, obviously from edtech perspective, the scale is leaps and bounces, obviously. So the last 1 year, I think, especially 2020 April, May have seen a drastic increase in work from home processes, hiring across edtech. So obviously there is a huge increase in that. I mean, I don't see it stopping also, because I mean, all of Vedantu, or I mean, all other edtech businesses are still on the spree of hiring, obviously launching various product categories, launching various offerings on the bucket of products what they already offer. So yeah, I think it will grow, but I think some consolidation is beginning to happen. But I don't think it is very, I mean, it's not very quick consolidation which you will see, as per me. Yeah, so Ankit can add more to it probably.
In terms of skill sets, right? I think there's a lot that has changed, right? In terms of the way we sold, right? The way we approached our customers, right? So typically, what worked in our favor, right? In a post-COVID scenario, is we tried to not change a lot of things, right? They used to call and book demos. They were doing post-COVID also, right? They were doing those face-to-face interactions, right? They were doing post-COVID also, right? It's just that they were physically not present. That is something that we could not do anything about, right? But we try to keep things as simple as possible for them, right? So that they adapt to this new way of selling faster, right? But yeah, so all in all, the only thing that changed, right, is their adaptability. Right? I think that helped us. They were able to adapt quicker and faster, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, they've been able to do well, right, in a virtual selling environment, in a work from home environment as well.
So, I have one more question, and I believe there are a lot of questions that are similar in nature from the ones we took earlier. And also, you guys, I can always connect you to Ankit post session, so he'll be happy to answer your questions there. So this question has come like 4 times, so I have to ask it. So Ankit, this is regarding one of your slides. I think something you put there. So Sharath wants to know, what do you mean by set up channels for inter-category communication to drive cross sells?
Yeah. You need to ensure that you are able to do well, right? Try, as I said, you need to ensure max LTV possible, right? Get the best LTV from the enrolled customer, right? So you will need to have the right kind of communication strategy or channels where you will need to have these sales happening from other categories, right? So let's say if I've sold a curriculum course, as I was giving an example for sixth grader, right? I'll have an option, given my current set of offering, I'll have an option to sell a coding course also, right? So I need to ensure on, or I need to probably plan on, how do I get that coding course to be sold, right? Should it be sold from the same sales agent, or should it be sold from a different sales agent? Should it be done at the point of sale itself, or should it be done at a later point in time, right? Should be should that be done through an assisted channel, or should it be done through an auto channel, right? Wherein in an auto channel you probably do those CRM campaigns, right, where you send messaging, where you do the messaging, or do an IVR, right? Or let's say send an email and then ask those customers to look up for your coding courses and then purchase one of those courses, right? So
Yeah.
that's what
So
is
I mean,
meaning.
yeah, adding to Ankit's point, I think basically whenever you convert a sale, right, you definitely need to have actionable insights on how you can upsell, cross-sell various other offerings what you have to the same kid or parent for that matter. So having signals basically on what Ankit mentioned, right? So how you get this signal on what to do, how to do, when to do, right? And all of this is where the process designers or the tools which will be helpful to have your upsell and cross sell processes in place, so that you basically have your overall customer value and also an intelligent kind of approach, right? Rather than just calling the student and asking. So you know the time when it is right to ask, you know whom you should assign this to ask or have a better conversion rate. So all of this is where the overall intercommunication or inter-team communication for that matter, or a system like LeadSquared, which can definitely help to set these rules and do those engagements basically.
Thank you. And I'll take the last question. That is also for you, Murli. So this is the last question, guys. Any further questions, we will get back to you on email. We are really short of time now. So the question is from Divya Shri, who says, how cost effective is LeadSquared for early startups?
Okay, so yeah, edtech will grow fast, so you'll not be a startup once you start, taking off. By the way, but I mean to be precise, yes, we have some plans for early stage startups. We are definitely cost effective, but I don't know the term cost effective. It is definitive on what exactly you're expecting. But we definitely have a startup plans or packages which we offer. Yeah, we can connect offline as well and discuss probably. Yeah.
Awesome. Divyashri, you can hear from us regarding that. So a lot of people are thanking you for the presentation, for the one really comprehensive, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Ankit, for joining us and giving us your time. And thank you, Murli, as always, for taking us through a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot
everyone.
for
Thanks,
hosting
Shivani. Thanks, Ankit.
and
Yeah.
coordinating. Yeah, thanks a lot to the audience for being so patient with us. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
And
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the UBS team for helping us with this webinar. With that, I will say goodbye. For those of you who have friends in the real estate sector and the insurance sector, we have a lot of events planned for those two sectors in the coming month, March primarily. So do put in a word, and we will have invites going out very soon. Till then, take care. Bye bye.
bye bye, guys.